I played the violin. Well, I learnt the violin for well, since I was 5 years old, I think. And yeah, and that kind of that like set the tone for how I sort of engaged with sound. So I was, I was like performing it. I was, I was used to like touching it. Actually, I'd have my fingers on the things that would actually vibrate the air, and I sort of mess around and improvise with that in a childish kind of way. And then yeah, then I discovered rave at 12 via some bootleg rave tapes, and that was like a strange clash of seas. And rave won. Hardcore will never die. And yeah, so rave prevailed. But then it was all in the kind of context of like actually having my hands on the sound, and of course it wasn't like that then. That was in I don't know. That was like in the early '90s, and there wasn't any of this digital technology. There wasn't any like pressing buttons to do stuff. It was all all sort of hidden behind a mouse then at best. So yeah, I took up DJing, and obviously that didn't cut it because you're just playing tracks, and I just wanted I wanted to get my hands on the tracks. So even before like all this digital modular stuff, which is what I use to build my instruments in now, even before that came about, I was like inventing these machines and inventing like ways of how you could make tracks live. Yeah, so yeah, I did an MA in electroacoustic music, and that sort of, actually, if I'm honest about it, the main reason I did it at the time was to buy time, because I'd finished my philosophy degree, and my parents and sort of like received opinion was saying that like, well, it's time for you to go and get a job, Sonny Jim. But I was like, no way. And I didn't really have enough work to like survive as a musician, so just like, I know, I'll buy some time, and I'll do music academically. But yeah, it did, because there was a whole, basically had a whole year of just being able to indulge really indulge all the things that would take years and years to do. I mean, this is what's really good with academia, is that people get to indulge stuff that's just not like, there's no business case for it whatsoever. And so yeah, so I just like noodled around in Reactor. I made these kind of like crazy quadraphonic compositions and spent like 6 weeks on 5 minutes of music. And actually, yeah, I mean, it was a real, a lot of the techniques that I kind of learnt and developed then sort of filtered through to how I ended up doing stuff now. Yeah, so going from doing stuff solo to doing stuff with people, it's a strange liminal space. It's a weird transition to make, because I mean, especially with the way because I've got this instrument which is my noodling machine, and it's just like it's big feedback loop with my brain. But then there's this element of surprise that, because if you're like rehearsing all your own points of view and opinions all day in your own head, you just come to this very, very strict and rigid worldview that kind of makes sense to you. But if it gets knocked, it's just like, and when you collaborate with people, that's exactly what happens. You're throwing yourself into this position where your like musical understanding of things is up for challenge. It's going to get knocked down. It's going to get like chipped. And that's a really wonderful experience, because it's particularly wonderful because you're not the only person coming to that. Like, everybody who steps into this arena of collaboration is having this same experience. They're kind of like having their sort of musical egos and identities just like bashed around in this sort of like colander of I don't know, tight trousers. What does that mean? Yeah. No, my approach to collaborating with the Heritage Orchestra is, in one sense, it's always been a dream of mine to do something with an orchestra, to do something live with an orchestra, and I've never really got to do it. So I've got various ideas about how it should happen, and these are basically the orchestra will be, they'll be mic'd up and they'll be coming into my instrument, and I'll be taking samples from them and weaving these in with loops and beats and textures and so on, and generating. I mean, I'm going to try to generate as much of the composition from the orchestra as possible. Obviously, I mean, it's quite difficult to turn a violin into a really fat kick drum, so I think I might be going back to the sample bank for that. But yeah, there's going to be some improvisation. I think I'm going to be hopefully focusing in on some particular soloists, to do some kind of more improvised like duet style sections, and then go on to some more orchestrated bits where it's more, it's more kind of rigid. Like, we are actually going to do this, and we know what we're going to do beforehand. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, I have this real kind of extravaganza in mind, and I think it ends in like this huge firework, and then the roof of Village Underground sort of like rains down in like blazing hot steel and so on. I mean, it's going to be pretty epic.
Great stuff. Well, I can't wait. I look forward to it.